getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows. Well, hello and good evening, folks. Welcome back here to Ron's Race Night on Slow Motion Broadcasting and the Week 5 action, covering the Ringmeister Series here at nowhere else but the Nordschleife. My name is Ron Maunz, and I feel pretty, oh so pretty. Welcome in, folks. We've got another fantastic race for you here this evening. You know, this was originally going to be the action from the Radical SR10 official series. However, Thruxton proving not to be the most popular track in the world this week, so instead, we're here for some fantastic Super Formula Lights action. Just another part of this absolutely amazing schedule that we've got from this season. Looking ahead in 1 week's time, Skip Barber's going to be running at Interlagos, Street Stocks at Lanier. Not going to be seeing open wheel action again here, fingers crossed, outside the Skip Barber race in 1 week's time, until the Formula C's running at this exact same racetrack for week 8 action. That will be on August the 9th, and hopefully all of you will be able to tune into that broadcast here in the not too far off future. But as it stands at the present moment here in this race, currently in the midst of a nice little warm-up session here. So I'm expecting to see what sort of pace we may see out of these racers. Of course, it being the Nordschleife, we have got a very long racetrack here, so I can't really think about that too much. And fun fact for all of you tuning into the show, this was the first ever racetrack that I got the opportunity to broadcast here on iRacing. It was many moons ago. It was a very interesting race. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was able to enjoy it, and hopefully all of you will be able to enjoy this race here. But let's get the starting grid loaded up here for this race this evening. It'll be Alec Lowe starting this race from the pole position. The Hong Kong driver behind the wheel of the number 4 car will be joined on the front row by the American of Ralph Nosel there in the number 7. It'll be an all-Aussie row number 2 with Bradley Sachs and Jason Davies. Ryan Moore will start this race in P5 alongside Joseph Friday. Starting this race in 6th, it'll be Glenn Firth in 7th alongside Dean Perry in 8th. Nick Sentes will start this race in P9 alongside Jeffka Cascater. There we see these drivers rounding out your top 10, lining up on the starting grid already, have a rolling start, which will help me out quite some bit. It'll be Hansa Lipika, my apologies, starting this race in P11 with Victor Monsadola running out your top 12. And looking through the rest of the starters that we've got here in this starting grid, the list continues on with Ian Bertolucci starting this race in 13th, Jack Baker in 14th, Zach Thomas in 15th, David Adai will start this race in P16 alongside our SMB colleague Mr. Joshua Wilkie making his appearance here tonight. He'll be starting this race in P17, my apologies. It'll be Aston Schillis starting this race right alongside him in P18. Right behind them will be Brandon Crow and Henry Miller. It'll be Seth Kalunzi starting this race in P21st alongside Adam Heikala in P22. It'll be Ben Bleich starting in 23rd alongside Alberto Ramos in P24. I will say we have more starters. However, a decent chunk of the starting grid actually did not take to this warm-up lap. Of course, qualifying done for these races in a completely separate session, so don't have to worry about that too much. Instead, we have got a race which is set to be a barn burner. I have a feeling that we are in for a very good race this evening. Going to be riding on board with these drivers all throughout this race with the wonderful onboard cameras that we've got here at Slow Motion Broadcasting. I'm definitely not just saying that because I was the one that made them a matter of about a half an hour ago. We got some fantastic cameras. We didn't even ride on board with a cockpit cam for these racers as well. But for your front starter of Alec Lowe, it will be a very interesting start for him. Let's see what that Hong Kong driver will do. He guns it early. The green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. Low trying to get off to the best start that he can, and he does so successfully. Ralph Kosa will start this race in P2, remain in P2. Ryan Moore looking to get some moves done early, already up 2 spots. Dean Perry up 4, albeit some of these stats may be skewed a teeny tiny bit as a result of those drivers not taking the start. We see all throughout this field drivers starting to thread the needle, and a big crash a little bit farther in the back. That, I believe, was Baker at the center of all that. Bertolucci, oh, more drama going on as they head their way through the opening series of corners. A big moment right at the start of this race. We've already seen one retiree. That's Victor Macedello. He's dropped out of this race. He's decided to call it quits, and that was a lot of drama as they headed their way off through the opening series of corners right at the very start of this race. We're going to jump on board and try and follow some of these drivers in this drama because, believe me, folks, it was absolutely hectic. You can see that contact going on a little bit farther up the road, synchronized spinning, and everybody just stacks up down like a pack of dominoes. They all fall. More contact being made as drivers merge their way back onto the racetrack. An ugly start here for this 3-lap long race, but thankfully they will be able to still get restarted in this race in the not too far off future. But Alec Lowe continues to lead over Ralph Kosa well farther back. Now 2 seconds a gap between those racers presently. Fantastic start for those racers at the front end of the field. However, Knosel has a little bit of pressure from Ryan Moore right behind. We follow him currently, heading his way off through into one of my favorite sections of racetrack here at the Nordschleife. I absolutely adore this track. I will say that I think there's been a moment a little bit farther in the back involving the 18. Yes, there has. That right there is Jeff Ketzker, and that's more drama involved in that. That's Nick Sentes. Didn't really see him involved in all that, but he's out of this race. He's decided to call it quits. Not exactly sure what the drama was between those racers. Gonna have to load up a replay. That was a rather goofy looking collision, just as we were looking at Cassiter and his drama and all that. It was more drama going involved. Let's see this as he heads his way through one of the quickest sections of this racetrack, down the hill, then back up the incline. And let's see, is it a curb whack? Potentially. No, just loses it through there, hits the outside wall, ricochets off in a pretty bad way, and now he's going to try and get spun back around in the right direction. And oh, that was an off-track moment of his own regard there. So rather interesting stuff that we saw a couple of moments ago. Nick Sentes not having a good moment there at all. We're actually going to follow him. Already missing the front wing. I think he may have had a piece of that drama a little bit earlier on, and yeah, I think he took that contact as a sign, potentially even from God, and decided to call it a quits as a result of all of that. Alec Lowe holds on to the race lead, and I can see my father has come up here into the broadcast booth to bring me a glass of water. Thank you very much, Dad. Do you have anything to say to the people?
Hi, people.
Alrighty, thank you very much. That right there is my father, ladies and gentlemen. And this right here is your race leader, Alec Lowe. Not in live time. There's a little bit farther along. That is not ideal. That is not the correct camera. That's the correct camera. I was about to say, if we had our race leader disconnect as I was cutting to replay, I'd probably crash that glass of water my father just gave me over my head out of shame. Ralph Kosel, he's had a moment. He's dropped down to P3. Ryan Moore now getting that move done on him. So we look at these racers running nose to tail. May end up seeing another game of leapfrog play out between these racers as we ride on board with the 7, heading his way off into the section right before the first carousel. This is always super fun. You can see a little bit of a lockup though, potentially, as he heads his way down in there. Here's a good camera angle. We'll take advantage of this. The gyro cam down to the banking. Let's savor this view, folks. That is cool. That you can tell oh no! That's Ryan Moore. Ruddisell's salivating over the camera. Ryan Moore kicks himself into the barrier. Not sure what happened there, but he lost it. And let's take a look at this replay. In that Apex car, I think he hit the Apex a little bit too well. Maybe whacked the curb. And as a result, that took a one-way trip into the outside barrier. Actually, no, it was the inside arm car. My apologies. Let's take a look at this. Loses it over the banking and bang. Augers straight into that wall. Very good evasive action from Dean Perry to avoid contact. That's a huge moment for your at one point P2 runner. It'll be good news to Ralph Knosel, who still hold on to it, but that's a very big drama at the start of this race. You can see the driver, the number 7, still running strong. Lots of drivers making their way up through the running order, and one of them was just because of an incident. There you can see bad luck there for multiple racers. That's Helkala with a moment. You can see that number 17 car damaged beyond recognition, and let's take a look at this replay. I think there is more drama involved in all that. Let's follow him heading off through this mid-sector of the track, and survey says that it may have been potentially a car losing it in front of him and then that going on. No, he hit the curb. It was a car losing it in front of him, but he lost it on the curb all by his lonesome. And who was that? I think that may have been potentially, was that Schleiss? No, I don't think it was. There it is. It was Libika. There we go. So we see that driver, the number 16 car, get involved in that. Actually, no, that was not the 16. My apologies. I'm trying to get the number off that car, I believe. Still trying to do the investigative journalism. There it is. It was Sergio Garma. My apologies. So the driver of the number 25 car getting a small piece of that action. Thankfully for him, he still runs rather smooth. At the front of the field, though, Alec Lowe continues to lead over Ralph Knosel, slotted in P number 2. Your P3 runner at the present moment is Dean Perry. As we look at these racers complete the first lap here of this race on Ron's Race Night, I'll remind you that this is a publicly funded top split iRacing broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. And if you'd like to support Ron's Race Nights and the weekly action we bring, if you can scan that QR code right there to donate to my Ko-Fi, I would greatly appreciate you. If you want to stay tuned for all the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, how about you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the racing action. It's been a very hectic start here at the Nürburgring for this Ringmeister race with the Super Formula lights, but at the front of the field, Alec Lowe continues to lead. I'm looking to see what sort of of drama we may have going on a little bit farther in the back. Think there's a fight involving Sergio Garma. Let's take a look at this. Yes, there is. Look at that side-by-side racing going on a little bit farther up the road, and 3 cars covered by nothing as they head their way down the backstretch off into the turn. We ride on board with them. He won't have the view of the most amount of race cars. It'll be Henry Miller instead, your current P12 runner with the view of the most amount of race cars. Garma off to a flyer, 15 spots gained since the drop of the green flag. Fantastic stuff from him. We'll get that graphic up for you right there. There you can see the hard chargers. Lots of drivers in the double digits, including your current P4 runner at the present moment of Zach Thomas. So very good stuff from Thomas, the American behind the wheel of that number 5 car. Dean Perry up 5 spots from where he started in this race. And our very own Mr. Joshua Wilkie with a very tasteful Senna tribute scheme. There you can see him right now heading his way off through the opening series of corners. See, you think opening series of corners here really accounts for the first 25. Then when you go through the 164 that follow, then you can talk about getting into the later sector of this lap. But at the moment, Wilkie holds on to that second spot outside of the top 5 right now. P7 is his current position. I think for a couple of moments here, we will ride on board with our colleague here on Slow Motion Broadcasting and my colleague over on the Formula V Weekend Warriors, the boss man himself. Let's ride on board with Wilkie and keep our fingers crossed that he doesn't end up in the barrier as we ride on board with him. Otherwise, I may get fired. And as we have been riding on board with Josh, we have seen a moment for Nick Sentes a little bit farther in the back, so things going from bad to worse for the driver who started essentially started off with a bang, was missing a front wing at the end of that first lap, but I think things have gone cataclysmically wrong for him. I've seen some drivers come into the pits likely to repair the damage that was inflicted on their race cars as a result of the early drama. I think there may have also been a moment. Let's take a look at this. We may have already seen this before. Yeah, that was the moment for Heikela, and we see him tow back to pit lane as a result of the damage on that race car. But still running strong at the front of the field is Alec Lowe, now extending that gap between himself and Ralph Knosel of now 6 seconds. Very nice gap to see at this point in time, but as we've been focused on the race leader and your driver in P7, who is still Mr. Joshua Wilkie, let's cut to this battle because we do have it starting to flare up a little bit between your current P3 runner of Dean Perry, the Brit behind the wheel of this green number 10, and Zach Thomas right behind the American behind the wheel of what to me looks like a Kiffin Simpson-esque Chip Ganassi scheme. I'm looking through. Is that actually what that's meant to be? I can see the Honda logo on the back of there, albeit, you know, it's a Super Formula Lights car. Kind of should be expected that you have a Japanese car manufacturer on the back of the car. But, you know, right now seeing some very different looking race cars run right nose to tail. And I gotta say, the iRacing cameras here, and oh boy, you can see that moment from Dean Perry cutting me off right as I was about to insult the iRacing cameras and get a random computer blue screen. But right now, that was a huge moment for Dean Perry as he headed his way out of the carousel. Loses a little bit of time, it must be said, to Zach Thomas right behind. He will be trying to pick up the pieces if there is another moment for the 10. Let's ride on board with him. I just realized riding on board, I believe it's actually an old Renault tribute scheme. I think I see the Mild 7 logo potentially there on the car of Zach Thomas. I want to cut to another shot if I possibly can here. Roll bar camera. Powered by Spoon. There we go. I'm not sure if that is actually an old Fernando Alonso I nearly said mid-2010s, mid-2000s Renault paint scheme there. So I believe we'll just run with it as is. Very nice looking Stars helmet there. Very, very nice stuff that we get to see here on these Ron's Race Night shows. And if you are enjoying the action, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the racing action. And that right there, folks, is how you do a plug that's about as smooth as 80 grit sandpaper. Dean Perry still holds on to P3 at the present moment in front of Zach Thomas. These racers still keeping it close and keeping it honest between each other, which is good to see from our perspective. But I think heading off through the tight and twisties around this lap, that is not the spot where you're going to see the moves get done. No. That was running very wide for Zach Thomas. But no, heading out of this section, once we get onto the backstretch, that will be when we see these drivers go for the moves. That is the spot to do it. That's the spot to go for it. I think we're going to see a driver go for it here in the not too far off future. Let's do a little bit of camera ping pong here. Right on board with Dean Perry, right on board with Zach Thomas. Cut to the outboard shots. We're about to see a move here potentially down the backstretch. Thomas going to pull out to try and get that move done side by side. Think this game of leapfrog is going to work out the way of him. Let's take a look and see. Riding on board with Thomas here in a couple of moments time, or maybe with Dean Perry. We'll have to see how this all works out here for Perry. Will he lose out on that spot? I believe he will. They're side by side still as they head their way down the backstretch under the bridge. There's the move finally, nearly, kind of, sort of, not really. There's the move finally from Zach Thomas. He eventually cleared him. Took him about 50,000 years. Not sure whether that number 5 car is powered with milk or what, but he gets that move done as we're about to take the white. In fact, we have taken the white flag for your race leader, your dominant race leader at the moment of Alec Lowe. He's heading his way off through Hotzenbach right now. The driver of the number 4 car has been the indomitable force up to this point here in this race, and looking to keep the same promise that we saw in that qualifying session earlier on. I say we saw, nobody saw, because it wasn't broadcasted here in this, of course, with it being the Nordschleife split sessions to try and get the qualifying sorted, and Alec Lowe was able to get it done. But in this race, he's also been super quick as well. Just set the best lap of the race last time by at a 6-minute 13.910. So very good stuff from Alec Lowe. Looking a little bit farther behind, though, may have a battle involving Lipka here. Let's take a look at this. Here it is, the driver of the number 16 car currently trying to engage in a little bit of a chase down at the moment. You can see in this Lidl car, that's always fun to say, lead. Let's see if he'll be able to lead in front of the driver right in front of him. That is South Colmsey. This is a move down into up the hill. There we go. That was a slick move there, and it could have ended in disaster for the driver of the number 15 right behind. Holy cow, that was a fantastic move from Hansga Lipka. That was textbook stuff, brave stuff. I think it could have been a Code Brown moment if it was any more hair racing for either of those racers. I'm gonna have to take a look at a replay because that was about as well done as you possibly could do it. Some fantastic stuff as he headed his way through the top end of the track. Lipka's actually been on a bit of a charge as of recent. Got a move done midway through last lap, and just got this move done here. Let's take a look at this. He heads his way up the hill using that draft. I was thinking, no. Yes, he gets that move done. Brilliant stuff from Hansa Lipka. That could have ended in disaster, but thankfully for him, it ends in him smelling like a bed of roses instead of smelling like a bucket of horse manure. We're going to jump back to him because he had the balls of steel to get that move done. Brilliant stuff from the driver of the number 16. And I will say, as a result of that, potentially, Bradley Sachs has really caught up to the driver of the number 15 of Seth Kalumzi. You can see him right now slotted in 15th, and a bit of a lockup there. Heading off into the turn, Bradley Sachs and Seth both running in interesting F1-related schemes. You can see Bradley running in this McLaren. Hey, he is Australian, so that does make sense, with Oscar Piastri tearing it up in that McLaren this year in Formula 1, as that was a big lockup there from Seth Kalumzi. And Seth, of course, the Canadian, not running the 18 instead of running the 15, so 3 off of Lance Stroll, and about as many lockups as Lance Stroll usually has in a Formula 1 race as well. So funny to see the realism that iRacing brings here into the sim, but looking like we're going to have a very intense run all the way through to the end of this race with those racers. We'll have to see if there is a battle that flares up involving them. The lockups certainly stacking up there for the number 15. Runs a little bit wide, heading off through that section, and he may be a sitting duck. He will be a sitting duck, as there goes Bradley Sachs to get get that move done. Pretty dominable stuff from him, as we're actually going to jump to a battle involving Glenn Firth and Josh Wilkie. We're going to run on board with the driver running right in front of Wilkie, the number 20, currently being the one punching that hole in the air. That's not the textbook spot to be in the slightest. Right at the end of this race, you can really put yourself at risk of ending up in a world of hurt. So fingers crossed we will not see that here at the end of this race, as he has a little bit of a slow moment through there, it must be said. Runs a little bit deep on the curb as well. This is not the section, though, to go side by side on, if we are being completely honest. I mean, you can't really see it based off that camera angle, but still. Yeah, that's not a good section to go side by side. That section is tricky enough single file, let alone side by side, so I don't think that would be a good move. Two drivers in. Interestingly enough, we're covering a McLaren and an old British team. We've now got a McLaren and an old British team in the case of Williams this time instead of Aston Martin, that have gone under so many different names. It's been hard to keep track of over the years. But Glenn Firth, the Aussie, in that number 20 car, currently being the one still punching that hole in the air and trying to hold on to it as best as he can. We'll also touch back on your race leader of Alec Lowe, who's about to head his way down that start-finish stretch for one of the final times in this race. He's on track for a W. He's about it's about a quarter of a lap away from victory here in that number 4 car. But as we stay on board with these racers and follow Mr. Wilkie and Firth, we look at a little bit of a wiggle there from Firth heading off through that section. That is always such a pain in the butt corner to try and nail down, and he had a little bit of a wiggle through the turn. Now Wilkie gonna be there within striking distance in case there's any sort of trip up. Let's see how it's all gonna work out. This is the final calm before the storm for these racers, it must be said. You can see as we ride on board with the back of Glenn Firth's race car that this is the point where you can calm down, take a chill pill, and relax. But when they head their way onto the start-finish straightaway here in a few moments' time, it'll be anything but. A little bit of a wiggle there, must be said, from Firth. Alec Lowe on the back straightaway. He's on track for a victory, but the fight I'm going to have my eyes on, it will be the one of Firth. Lowe currently holds on to a 11.2 second gap, so he is definitely going to be victorious in this race, but my attention will be on these two as they head their way on through the final corner right at the very end of this race. We'll briefly jump to Lowe as he crosses the line here in a couple of moments time. Wilkie trying to save up that run, a little bit farther off, I will say, so we'll jump back to this and follow a move potentially from Wilkie. He pulls back into the draft trying to save up that run. Alec Lowe about to win this race. He runs his way around the final corner and gets the move done. Speaking again, the move done, here comes Wilkie side by side with himself and the 20 of Glenn Firth, heading their way under the bridge for the final time. Through goes Wilkie. That will be another spot gained, 11 spots gained in this race, and it'll be P6 at the end of it all. Just needs to master one more braking zone and the win will be his. Let's see as he heads his way through the final 2 turns. The win in the battle, I should say, the win before the battle for P6 will go to Wilkie. Well done to him in the number 9 car. Fantastic stuff for all these racers up and down the grid, waiting for a few more drivers left across the line. I believe the last will be Ben Bleach, and he's currently locked steady in a very close battle with himself and Pietro Ferracci. And let's see these racers down into the turn. That's about as blank as 80 grit sandpaper. Let's take a look at this. Here we go, heading their way through the tight twisties right at the end of the lap. That was a commanding move there from Bleach, and very interesting to see more F1 schemes here on track today. A Haas beating a Mercedes. Where have you ever seen this in the history of Formula 1? There's a checkered flag for those two racers. They are victorious in their respective battle. Bleach going to finish this race in P13 at the end of it all. Some absolutely awesome stuff here for week number 5 action from the Ringmeister Championship, running these Super Formula Lights. You know, I was expecting this to be a wild race, and we certainly got it, but you know, that was just some awesome stuff all around. So we'll get those results loaded up here in just a couple of moments time and let you know that at the end of this absolutely awesome race, your winner at the end of it all is going to be the number 4 Alec Lowe, your race winner at the end of it all. He wins this race by 11.7 seconds over Ralph Canosal in P2. Zach Thomas will round out your podium in third. 12 spots gained for the American in the 5 machine. Brilliant stuff from him from the drop of the green all the way through to the fall of the checkered. Finishing right behind him will be Dean Perry, the Brit behind the wheel of the number 10, rounding out your top 4, with the driver right behind him in the form of Joseph Friday, rounding out your top 5 here on a Saturday. Josh Wilkie will finish in 6th. In front of Glenn Firth in 7th. It'll be Hansa Lepika finishing this race in P8 in front of Bradley Sachs in 9th. Seth Kalumzi will round out your top 10. It'll be Sergio Garma finishing this race in 11th in front of Ben Bleach in P number 12. Pietro Ferracci will round out your cars that actually crossed that start-finish line and took the checkered flag here in this race. And looking through, actually, Henry Miller, right at the end of it all, was able to snag a P14 result at the end of it all. I think there may have been some penalties right there towards the end for Nick Sentes, which is interesting considering he was still well farther back. So Henry Miller classed in P14. It'll be Brandon Crow finishing this race in P number 15 in front of Caster right there in P16. Ryan Moore in 17th. Nick Sentes will finish this race in P18. Just a few more drivers left to go through here at the end of this field. The list continues on with Victor Musalado finishing this race in P number 19. P20 will go to Ian Bertolucci. Jack Baker will finish right behind in 21st. David Idai will finish this race in 22nd in front of Alberto Ramos in 23rd. Ashton Schleiss finishing this race in 24th. Adam Haikia will finish this race in P25 with Jason Davies running at the 26 cars that are classified here at the end of this race. For the Week 5 action from Slow Motion Broadcasting's coverage of Ron's Race Nights here on SMB, and it's been some absolutely brilliant stuff to keep it going here this season. I'm looking through it now. I don't believe Mr. Wilkie will be joining us here in the broadcast booth. I was looking to see whether or not he would want to have a chat with us. I guess he will not want to have a chat with us at the end of this race. A race that really saw it all here. It was some absolutely hectic stuff at certain points in time, but absolutely brilliant stuff as well. But at the end of it all, your race winner is going to be not that driver. That's not the driver that was able to win the race. Instead, it will be this man. The number 4, Alec Lowe, is victorious at the end of it all here for week number 5 action from Ron's Race Nights here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. I'll tell you what, folks, if you enjoyed the racing action here tonight, how about you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the racing action here on SMB. We've got you covered week in and week out, soon to be day in and day out here. Absolutely awesome stuff to look forward to. And of course, Ron's Race Night you can catch every single Saturday night here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. We have got action from all sorts of races, all sorts of race cars, all sorts of drivers, top split action every single Saturday night, all throughout season 3 here, all throughout the summer on Slow Motion Broadcasting. I'll tell you what, we have got an absolutely awesome schedule to look forward to as well. In 1 week's time, we'll be able to catch the top split action from the Skip Barber Race Series running at Interlagos. You'll be able to see that in 1 week's time, and that'll be at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Next time you'll be seeing Nordschleife action will be for the Week 8 action with the Formula C Fix Series running at the Nordschleife. That'll be the exact same time as that Skip Barber race, but that'll be on August the 9th. So a little bit to look forward to here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. I'll remind you folks yet again tuning into this stream that this right here is a publicly funded iRacing top split broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, and support for Ron's Race Nights comes through generous donations through the Ko-Fi QR code on screen right now. Scan that to support public broadcasting here on the iRacing platform. And to all of you tuning into these broadcasts week in and week out, thank you so very much for tuning in. It is an absolute pleasure to put these broadcasts together and give you all this action, because trust me folks, as someone who's run in many races and has done many broadcasts, some of the drivers that I've gotten the opportunity to see here have been some of the best. They have put on some absolutely brilliant racing action week in and week out, and hopefully all of you will be able to tune into the rest of the racing action here as we continue on our journey on the iRacing platform here for season 3 of 2025. But as for this broadcast here, for the Week 5 action from the Ringmeister Championship with the Super Formula Lights cars here tonight, that will do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, working the comms and the cams with all of you on tonight's broadcast, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting tonight, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.